Okay, so the question we're going to be doing now is your daily vehicle walk around checks. What the examiner will turn around and say to you is, could you show me and explain to me what checks you could do on this vehicle on a daily basis to make sure it's safe to take it out on the public road? So you actually get a check sheet, and every single item you need to check is on here. You've got a pen, you tick every item off as you go through it, and a brief explanation of what you're checking it for. First thing we're going to do, we're going to start with the interior of the cab. Okay, so when we're climbing in the vehicle, don't forget your basics. Open your door safely, make sure it's open fully onto the door catch. When you get in the vehicle, using your 3 points of contact, making sure you don't slip. Okay, we're now sat inside the vehicle, so what we're going to be doing is we're going to be covering all the interior and all the instruments and all the checks we can make from inside the vehicle. We're going to go back to our checklist, and every item that's on this checklist that we can check inside the vehicle we're going to cover now. So the first thing we're going to do is the horn. The horn is there at the end of the indicator stalk. Press it, make sure the horn's working. You are allowed to do that on your test because the test is conducted off-road. Mirrors. So the mirrors, making sure all your mirrors are clean and they're all fixed and they're all adjusted for you in your normal driving position, and they're not broken and they're all set correctly for the driver. Again, tick it off on your list. Speedo. You've got a sticker up on the windscreen here, it's telling you that the vehicle is restricted to 85 kilometres. And what you'd also do is when you start to drive the vehicle, make sure the speedo is working once you start to drive. Again, tick it off on your list. Instrument panel. So your instrument panel, what you're actually checking is the dashboard, making sure there's no warning lights on there that shouldn't be on there, and also when you first turn the ignition on, that all warning lights are working. So if there is a problem with the vehicle, you know you're going to get your warning light. The only warning light that should be on is the handbrake. Also, what we can check here is make sure we've got enough pressure in our air tanks on there, making sure we've got enough fuel for the journey and AdBlue, and money's or cars to buy any more if necessary. The temperature gauge, we can't really check that till we start to drive the vehicle and the vehicle gets warm. Just keep an eye on the temperature gauge. The main thing you're checking is that it isn't going to start overheating. The gearbox selection is down here. Obviously the gearbox is in neutral, which is telling you on the dashboard there. The engine's not running, so we can't really check if the rev counter's working or anything else. But we'll check that in a moment when we're going to start the engine, and we're also going to check the exhaust as well when we come to that. So go back to your checkboard, tick it off. Wipers. Wipers are on here at the end of the indicator stalk again. Turn the barrel twice, and that puts your wipers on. Push the barrel in, and that is actually your screen wash as well. So you're making sure that the water's been removed correctly off the windscreen, and there's no rips or tears in the blades, and everything's working correctly. Again, back to your checklist, tick it off. Height marker plate is there. The vehicle is currently running at 13 foot. It's up to the driver to ensure that the height marker is set to the highest point of his vehicle before he leaves sight. And if you're unsure, go and check with your transport office and get it measured if all else fails. Exhaust, so what we're going to do now, we're going to make sure the gearbox is in neutral, the handbrake's applied. We're going to start the engine up. When I start the engine up, give it a quick rev. You don't have to go mad with it, just making sure there's no excessive noise and no excessive smoke coming out from underneath the vehicle. If there is any issues like excessive noise or smoke, you report it to your transport manager and you wouldn't take the vehicle out. And that's pretty much it from inside the cab. So what I'm going to do now, I'm going to put the ignition back on, and now I'm going to switch all the lights on. So on your instrument cluster here, you turn it twice to put your headlights on, and you pull it out, and that puts your fog lights on. You have a warning light on your dashboard to tell you that your fog lights are on. You put your fog lights on when visibility is reduced below 100 metres, and you would turn your fog lights off when visibility goes above 100 metres. Your high beam, you push the indicator stalk down, and the blue warning icon comes up on the dashboard to tell you that your high beam's on. Your hazard lights, like in any vehicle, it's the red switch down here with the triangle on it. Push that, and that puts your hazard lights on. What we're now going to do is climb out the vehicle safely, and we're now going to start these exterior checks of the vehicle. We're now going to do in the exterior of the vehicle. Now the easiest way to do it is basically if you look at your list, and when you stood next to it, if it's on the list, talk about it and explain what you're doing. It's not a sponsored walk. You don't want to keep returning to the same point to talk about something else. So you've got the lights, the brake lights, number plate lights, reflectors, indicators, tyres and wheel nuts and air leaks. Now this is why you don't have your engine running when you're doing your daily walk round checks. If I have the engine running, I can't hear any air leaks on the vehicle. So all the time when I'm walking around, I will be listening for air leaks as well. So first of all, the tyres. Now the minimum requirement for this vehicle is 1mm, 3/4 of the way across the centre of the tyre and all the way around the circumference of the tyre. The sidewall mustn't be any cuts, tears, no cord or beading sticking through the edge of the tyre. The tyre pressures, you consult the manufacturer's handbook for the correct tyre pressure and always check your tyre pressures when they're cold. The wheel nuts, if it has got the warning markers on like on our vehicle here, make sure the warning markers are actually pointing towards each other. If it hasn't got the warning markers on, look at the back of the wheel nut there, making sure that the wheel nut is nice and tight to the face of the wheel. There's no rusty water collecting at the back of the wheel nut, and all the threads all the way around look the same. So it doesn't like the wheel nut is starting to work its way across. Also what you've got here, you've got your side repeater, making sure that the bulb is working, the lens is clean and fixed to the vehicle correctly. So we're now going to continue with the question. We're now going to do in the front of the vehicle. The easiest way to do it that I find, if you start at the top of your vehicle and work your way down to the floor. So the first thing we're going to check up there is make sure the height markers are working above the windscreen. We've already checked the wipers and the wiper blades when we was inside by using the screen wash and making sure it was removing the water properly. So the next thing really we're going to check is the headlights, making sure all the bulbs are working, that the lens is clean. You've got your day running lights, indicators, dip beam and high beam. Bulbs are working, lens is clean. Registration plate, clean, fixed to the vehicle, readable, and there's no damage to the registration plate at all. The same with this headlight as on the other side, making sure all the bulbs are working, that the lens is clean and it's fixed to the vehicle correctly and there's no sellotape or anything else on it. Now I'm going to work my way around to this side of the vehicle. So we're now going to be at this side of the vehicle here, the same as we did at the front and at the other side. Going to start at the top of the vehicle and work your way down to the floor. So the mirrors are already discussed when we was inside the vehicle, just making sure they're fixed, clean and adjusted for you. And when we open the passenger side door here, open it up fully, this is where you would top your screen wash up. We've already checked inside that it was working. This is your top up point. You remove the cap, fill it to the top every day. Make sure you carry spare water with you in case it does run out. We're now going to be continuing, we're now going to be checking the tyres. Now I know we check the tyres on the other side and the wheel nuts, but you have got 6 tyres on this vehicle. Every tyre is a potential 3 points and also a potential hazard. You must check every single tyre on the vehicle. So the same as the other side, tread depth is 1mm, 3/4 of the way across the tyre, all the way around the circumference. Sidewall of the tyre, no damage to it, no cuts, tears, cord or beading. The wheel nuts, make sure they're nice and secure. If it has got the markers on, they're pointing towards each other. If not, checking the wheel nut at the back, that it's actually tight to the wheel. The tyre pressures, always check the tyre pressures when they're cold and consult the manufacturer's handbook for what there's a correct tyre pressure for these tyres. Working my way down here, we've now got the reflectors, the marker light, and it's actually a side repeater as well. You're making sure it's fixed to the body, that the bulbs are working and the reflector is clean, so it does reflect light back when the lights are turned off. You must always make sure that these are clean. Every single one you come to, making sure that the bulbs are working, that the lens is clean and it's fixed to the vehicle correctly. And also don't forget, while I'm walking on the vehicle, I will still be listening for air leaks. You've got the brakes there, you've got air tanks underneath, always checking for air leaks. Carrying on, working my way back. The same again, checking the marker light, making sure all the bulbs are working, the reflector, making sure it's clean and it's fixed to the vehicle. Now, on the back of the vehicle, we've got twin wheels on the left and right on the rear of the vehicle. So what we're going to be checking in between the tyres here is for a couple of things really. And there's no debris stuck in between the tyres. Making sure that the tyre walls are not touching each other. If one of them tyres has got a puncture in it, the sidewall of the tyre will be touching. The only problem with that is when you start to drive the vehicle, the tyres could set on fire. Okay, so we would always make sure that the tyre walls are not touching each other and there's no debris stuck in between the tyres. What a lot of drivers do is they put a chalk mark on the tyre, like an X. They drive the vehicle forward to make sure they've done a full revolution of the tyre, so they're checking in between all the way around the circumference of the tyre, making sure that all the wheel nuts are all fixed correctly, that the warning markers are in place and the wheel nuts are nice and tight, checking your tread depth on the tyres, 1 millimetre, 3/4 of the way across, all the way around the circumference, the sidewall of the tyres, no cuts, tears, cord or beading showing, and the tyre pressures, like I just explained. Always make sure that the sidewall of the tyres are not touching each other, and check the tyre pressures before you set off on your journey. What we're now going to do is work our way around to the exterior of the vehicle. So we're now going to do the exterior of the vehicle. So same principles before, you're going to start at the top of the vehicle and work your way down to the floor. So at the very top of the vehicle, we've got the 2 red height markers there, and you've also got the 2 orange indicators flashing at the top. Make sure the bulbs are working and they're fixed correctly. Working our way down to the floor, to the light clusters on the back of here. So on the cluster here, you've got your indicator, you've got your lights, and you've got your fog lights there. Now the brake lights, will come to them in a second, how we're going to check them. You're making sure all the bulbs are working, the lens is clean and fixed to the vehicle correctly. On a registration plate, you must make sure that your rear registration plate light is working. The registration plate is fixed and secured to the vehicle and it's not damaged and it's readable. The same round here, on this lens cluster here, the same as the other side. All bulbs are working, the lens is clean and fixed to the vehicle correctly. So cutting back to checking your brake lights. Now, like I said to you before, that would come back to this section. So what you need to do now is you need to seek assistance of the examiner or the assessor to help you checking your brake lights. So what you'd normally do now is you'd ask the examiner to check the bulbs for you, you'd walk to the car and press the brake pedal yourself. What the examiner or the assessor would then say to you is, so okay, brilliant, I'll help you do that, but what would you do if you was on your own? So what you do if you was on your own, you would reverse towards a reflective background, and if you could, you would press the brake pedal and check in your mirrors that the brake lights are working. And if you couldn't do that, you get a heavy weight, put it on the brake pedal and walk to the back of the vehicle and check the bulbs are working yourself. And then I'm going to walk off, I'm going to press the brake pedal, I'm going to make sure that the brake lights are working. So we're now on this side of the vehicle. Now I know we have explained on that side, there's a watch down the side of the vehicle checking and explaining things. Now remember, it is a demonstration test, so if you come to it, you must explain it. Even like I said before, even though we explain the tyres on the other side, we still have to check them on this side, so you still need to explain it to the examiner or assessor. So again, with your marker light, make sure the bulbs are working, the indicators are working, the lens is clean and it's fixed to the vehicle correctly. We're coming to the twin tyres again. So the same as on the other side, quite a few things to check on the twin tyres. We're going to be checking in between the tyres, making sure there's no debris stuck in between them, making sure the tyre walls are not touching each other. Like I said before, maybe put an X on your tyre, drive the vehicle forward to do a full revolution of the tyre to make sure you've checked all the way around in between the tyres. That the tyre walls are not touching or there's no debris stuck in between. The tyre tread depth should be a minimum of 1 millimetre, 3/4 of the way across the tyre, all the way around the circumference. No cuts, tears, cord or beading sticking through the sidewall of the tyre. Wheel nuts nice and secure, making sure that the has got warning markers on, that they're all pointing towards each other, and that the wheel nuts are nice and tight to the face of the wheel. The tyre pressures, again, always check the tyre pressures when they're cold. Consult the manufacturer's handbook for what correct tyre pressure to put in them. Walking down the vehicle, the same again, making sure the marker light's working, bulbs working, lens is clean and fixed to the vehicle. And the same with this marker light, bulb, indicator, lens clean, fixed to the vehicle. Coming to the front tyre, same again, 1 millimetre of tread, 3/4 of the way across the tyre, all the way around the circumference of the tyre. Sidewall, no damage to the sidewall of the tyre, no cuts, tears or cord or beading sticking through. Wheel nuts, making sure they're nice and tight to the face of the wheel. but it has got the warning markers on that they're paired up. The tyre pressure, consult the manufacturer's handbook for what the correct tyre pressure should be in this vehicle. And that concludes the daily walk around checks. If you have found the video informative, then please hit the like button down below. To see more modular 4 and all other content relating to your transport training needs, then please feel free to subscribe to our YouTube channel. You can also click on the bell icon to stay notified of any new content added to our channel, so that you never need to miss out. Thank you very much for watching today, and see you next time on the next video.